Paul Pelosi opened the door. That's according to new reports from the news. We're going to dive into that. The big question, did Paul Pelosi open the door? I mean, if he opened the door when the police showed up, why didn't he go outside the door? Why didn't he say, I'm being attacked. There's a psychopath in there with a hammer. Help me. He didn't do that. Other people say that's not true at all. It's the police who opened the door. That's why Paul Pelosi didn't run out. But we had no idea what the truth was because we haven't seen much of the evidence. But evidently, NBC has, and we are, of course, going to take a look at that report. But I want to show you the evidence that is being submitted in federal court. This is the docket that is against David Depape, the guy who got charged with crimes. And as a quick primer on this, there are two different levels of charges that are taking place right now. State court crimes and federal court crime. Immediately after this happened, David Depape was arrested by San Francisco police, and he was incarcerated and charged with several state crimes. Shortly thereafter, the FBI, which we'll look at later, showed up and said, we're basically in charge, and they charged him with additional crime, referencing the federal statutes, not the state charges. Here was the original complaint. So this is the docket on the federal docket, filed out of the Northern District of California, the Federal District Court, United States versus David Depape. Here you see that on October 31st, immediately after the crime, there was a criminal complaint that was filed. We're going to read that. But where new information came out is back on November 9th. The federal government, the FBI agents, they filed an indictment. And this is where we get a little bit more meat on the bone. So we're going to look at that. We also have, just to sort of get us caught up to speed, if we scroll down to the bottom, we're going to see we had some recent orders as recently as November 17th, which is about discovery and protective orders. But let's catch up on the docket. So two things happen. The crime starts in October. They immediately file a criminal complaint. Soon after, they convene a grand jury. The grand jury gets together. Evidence is presented. They lead to an indictment. We're going to read through that one. They had a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, and this is because he had state charges. They needed permission from the court, or basically notice to the court, to transfer him while he's in state custody for the state charges, to bring him back over to the federal level for federal charges. Okay, that's what this whole section is. So the government says, all right, judge, he's being prosecuted separately. We need him for our case. Do we have permission to get him? The judge says, yes, here you do. You do have permission to go get him. They reset this case for an initial appearance, which means he showed up, pled not guilty. That took place on November 15th, just a couple days ago. And that was not public. We couldn't see anything that happened there. Look at what happened that day. Order of recusal came in. So the judge who was originally assigned on that case, the guy's name was Judge Charles Breyer, he recused himself from the case. He's no longer on the case. Why might that be? Well, I actually opened up the order of recusal prior to the show. Nothing interesting in there. It's a standard order. He doesn't give any explanation for the recusal. If I had to guess, it's because he probably knows Pelosi. He probably is close with the Pelosi family. He's a judge there in California. So he recuses himself from the case. The case then gets reassigned to another judge. Her name is Jacqueline Scott Corley. Judge Breyer is no longer assigned to the case. He gets booted off. So they have new hearings set. We had an appearance that took place, it looks like, or the docket was updated after the appearance that took place on the 15th. We have Mr. Depape, who files a financial affidavit. Okay, he can't afford private counsel, so he applies for a public defender. The public defender is presumably approved. Then there's a stipulation and a proposed order, and then an order on the stipulation. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that as well. This is called a protective order. It's saying David Depape is not authorized to disclose any discovery outside of this criminal case. So we've got several things we're going to look at. This protective order. We're also going to look at the two criminal filings, both the complaint and the indictment for David Depape, all being prosecuted, of course, by the federal government. And so if you remember, we saw the FBI show up previously, and I wanted to go back and listen to this one more time because we have two sets of simultaneous investigations that are sort of parallel on top of each other. This was the scene when the FBI showed up at David Depape's residence, or where he was apparently living, and we can see the rainbow flag. We can see that the FBI asks for permission from the residents before they go in. But this was the day after, right? The San Francisco Police Department have already conducted their investigation and basically already written their report, and body cameras, all of that has already happened. Then we see these 4 FBI agents show up, and I suspect that one of the women here is the Stephanie Miner, who is the special agent who actually drafted the complaint and the indictment that we're going to take a look at. But here was the scene outside of David Depape's residence.
No, I mean, yeah, so what did you guys want to talk about?
Move over to the side. We don't care about anything else, but let's just come over here and talk to private.
Daniel, that guy's here.
Okay, so if you can't hear in your earbuds or your headphones or TV screen, the guy walks in and you can hear on the audio, he says, hey, the FBI's here. Kevin, the FBI's here, or somebody's name. Let's listen.
Talk to private.
Daniel, that guy's here.
Daniel, FBI's here.
FBI's here.
FBI, dummy, get off the video game. Get out here. FBI's here.
I mean, you surprised? I mean, there's a bazillion news reporters knocking on our door. Fucking Jesus Christ. Yeah. So, I mean, they want to come talk to us.
They want to come talk to us. FBI's waiting outside.
On there, you can just be able to pull the thing.
This right here?
Yeah.
They say, come on in. FBI agents are opening the gate. So one of these people, I believe, is Stephanie Miner, who is actually writing the criminal complaint and the indictment.
Excuse me while I secure the gate here.
FBI agent says, excuse me while I secure the gate.
Who else is inside? There's no one else inside, just me and him. Well, we have a couple puppies, but that's about it.
Let me help you.
So this is a media person who she just comes in. This FBI agent turns around back to the woman, to the media person, says, can we help you? Why are you here? We're the FBI. We got permission to come on this property. What are you doing just walking in? This poor lady thinks that they're just members of the media. She thinks, they're journalists because they look like journalists. They look like they just got off, done working out that morning or something. And so she comes to join them.
Well, we have a couple puppies, but that's about it.
Let me help you.
Death stare.
Well, apparently the news reporter has knocked on our door and said that.
She's not with us.
Are you not reporting?
No, just go away, reporters.
Reporters, go away.
Go away.
This is the FBI.
Yeah, go
For
away.
real?
Yeah, no
Oh,
joke.
sorry.
That's the FBI. Oh, sorry. She doesn't even know they're FBI agents. A highly trained journalist can't even tell they're FBI agents. And he gave her the little evil eye. Did you see that? I'm an FBI agent. Who the heck do you think you are? Look at that face right there. Oh, giving her the side eye. All right. So now she goes in, right? That's the scene from the FBI. Now we're going to go. We've got a lot of questions about this, of course. The NBC investigation is going to detail some of the differences between the FBI report and the San Francisco report, because the FBI, all of those esteemed geniuses who you saw show up there, evidently their report is not accurate. Go figure. So we'll listen to that investigation in a quick minute. But first, we've got to check in with our friends over at 4patriots.com. As you know, my friends, a food shortage could be coming. Experts have been talking about this as recently as July. We've got drought, inflation, we've got new policies. They're bringing our food supply to a breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than it ever has been. You can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits today. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years, super survival food, hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the United States, creating over 200 jobs for Americans. These kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, they stack very easily. They've got different delicious meals, breakfast, lunches, and dinners. You can make them in less than 20 minutes. All you've got to do, add some boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code ROBERT to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including a 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous fresh guarantee for an entire year after your order. Free shipping on anything over $97. These are called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale goes to charities who support our veterans and their families. You can go to 4patriots.com today. Use code Robert to get 10% off your entire order at 4patriots.com. Use promo code Robert. And thank you for supporting our sponsors. All right. And so let's check in on this investigation. Remember, we've got big questions about who opened the door.
All right.
Did Paul Pelosi open the door, or did the police open the door? We've got a lot of questions about this because it's important. It lends to credibility. Who's telling the truth here?
All right, new information tonight on a story that we've been tracking, the attack on Paul Pelosi, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Yes.
Our investigative team looked into why state and federal prosecutors each describe one specific detail of the police response differently. Senior investigative reporter Begad Shaban has been checking with his sources to try and clear it up. He joins us now, and you've got some answers, Begad.
Well, Jess, this all has to do with the moments, seconds, really, just before Paul Pelosi was struck in the head with a hammer inside his San Francisco home. Now, there continues to be contradicting accounts of a relatively simple question. Who opened the door that night when San Francisco police arrived to the Pelosi house? Now, the Department of Justice says the two officers opened the door. That's according to a federal indictment filed earlier this week. But the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, in another court document that was filed earlier this month, said Mr. Pelosi opened the door with his left hand.
Whoa!
So the question is, what really happened? According to a source familiar with the investigation who personally watched the police body camera footage from that night, officers knocked on the door of the Pelosi home, then backed away. And the video clearly shows Paul Pelosi open the door with his left hand, just like what was noted in the documents filed by the DA's office. Now, also as written in the DA docs, the source tells us the body cam video shows officers having a brief conversation with Pelosi and David Depape, that's the man accused of breaking into the Pelosi home, before Depape starts beating Pelosi with a hammer. We reached out to the Department of Justice for an explanation on its differing account of this seemingly innocuous issue of who opened the door, but so far we have not heard back. However, I did get to ask San Francisco DA Brooke Jenkins directly about another issue many people are wondering about earlier this week, based on her office's account of Paul Pelosi opening the door. The case has certainly garnered a fair share of conspiracy theories about what actually happened that night.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It's written in the reports. The San Francisco police said it happened one way, and the feds say it happened a different way. We're not making up differences. It's not a conspiracy theory. People have questions about the difference. What?
Part of your investigation, are you able to shed any light as to why Paul Pelosi didn't run out of the house towards police officers when he was able to actually open the door for them when they arrived?
What I'm not able to do is to speculate or try to place my opinions on why someone acted the way they did in any case. All we have is what happened. Everybody reacts to situations differently, and he will one day need to explain, right, to potentially a jury why he did what he did and what thought process was going on in his mind. But certainly we know that all victims of crime respond very differently under the stress of the situation, and I don't think it's fair for us to place what we believe, Monday morning quarterbacking.
Well, we just have general questions. We just have general questions about all this stuff. I mean, the theory is if you have a home invader, if you have a home intruder and you are fearful for your life, if you really are in danger, and the cops show up, and you open the door, you step outside so you're no longer in danger. You don't open the door, say everything's fine, come on in, and invite the cops in if you have a home invader in your house. I mean, just generally speaking. Now, that's why people have questions about this, because it doesn't fit. That's the whole point of the justice system, is to find the stuff that fits and doesn't fit. Now, listen to this lady asking why this might matter.
Yeah, I got to ask you this because, I mean, in the end, does it really even matter whether he opened the door or the guy opened the door or the police opened the door?
It
I mean,
does.
how does that change the scenario if you move away just conspiracy theories?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is right now, Jess, we have no reason to believe that it matters at all. And that's why our source, who has seen the police body camera video...
It does matter because it might be that the FBI is either, one, incompetent, that they didn't watch the body camera video and record it appropriately, right? They didn't do something they should have done. Number two, they did watch it and they were intentionally lying about this, right? They saw something that was a bad fact and they lied about it in their filing. Holy moly.
can't understand why federal investigators wrote that officers opened the door, because they say the video shows officers didn't. But when two police agencies give slightly different accounts of what happened in this kind of high-profile case like this one, it just feeds into conspiracy theories, and that's what we're seeing.
It's not a conspiracy theory. We're asking about a discrepancy in the police reports, in the official government filings, in documents submitted by FBI special agents and DOJ reviewed lawyers. It's not a question about a conspiracy. It's why is there such a big gap between what San Francisco police, the local cops say, and what the feds say? Now, to be fair to this guy, Be God, I think he's just protecting himself. I got to tell you, this guy did a great job even reporting this. He's probably going to be skewered, and hopefully he's still on the air next week. But obviously he knows why this is important. That's why he spent so much time investigating this. Now, I'm pretty sure he's just playing dumb at this point.
Right now on social media, people inventing crazy stories based on something as simple as who actually opened the door.
Yes, and in a situation, Brooke Jenkins said that there, in a situation like that, when so many things are happening, it is chaotic for the victim. So
let's take Paul Pelosi out of the whole thing. Forget about Paul Pelosi. Okay, maybe he's just confused. It's in the middle of the night. He doesn't know. Maybe he thinks it's his friend. He doesn't know what the heck's going on. He's on Ambien. He's drunk. Who knows, right? It could have been any one of those things. And that's fine. I'm not even as concerned about that. I'm really concerned about why the FBI lied about it, or why. Was it intentional? Was it an intentional lie? Did they just not watch the body camera footage, or did they watch it and they reported it differently? So it's like either incompetence or it's malicious attempts to adjust the narrative. This guy actually did a report, dove in there. Yeah, they don't match up. And somebody watched the body camera, and the FBI is clearly wrong, or they're clearly lying. And this lady, does it matter? Yeah, it matters, because you have a corrupt federal DOJ and FBI investigating and making stuff up that's obviously not even true. All right, so we've got a couple other details on this, including a distinction between what ICE says happened and what the San Francisco police say happened. So we've got some additional problems now. You've got the federal investigation that contradicts the state investigation. We also have now a federal ICE customs enforcement investigation that contradicts San Francisco as well. So none of these federal agencies can get their ducks in a row. Fox News reports that ICE contradicts San Francisco's reason for denying an interview with David Depape. You see him there. We've talked a lot about him. ICE is disputing a claim. Now the San Francisco Sheriff's Office, they say, you can't talk to him. They gave a reason. ICE sources told Fox News earlier this month that San Francisco Sheriff's Office had denied ICE officials the ability to interview David Depape, who DHS confirmed was in fact an illegal immigrant, illegally stayed here, crossed into the United States from Mexico on a visitor visa in 2008. Depape is facing charges of attempted murder, residential burglary, all of those other charges. San Francisco is a number of jurisdictions that has a sanctuary policy that forbids cooperation with ICE. The state of California also had a sanctuary policy for years. San Francisco told Fox News that a person presenting themselves as an immigration official tried to show up and interview Depape. However, they said that person was denied access because they lacked government credentials, instead saying they only presented a business card. Okay, so immigration's customs enforcement, they show up to take a look at this guy. Can we talk to him? San Francisco says, no, you're not official. You're not an official employee. ICE says, that's ridiculous. However, an ICE official told Fox News that the ICE agent, an enforcement and removal operations deportation officer, not only attempted to conduct an interview in person with Depape, but also had government ID. Says the officer identified herself, presented her government-issued credentials bearing her photo, name, position, and organization, but San Francisco denied the DO's request. In response to the statement by ICE, San Francisco said no. The person identifying themselves arrived at our jail with a business card, but no government credentials, and was therefore denied access. So everybody is just, I guess, doing whatever they want over there. Nobody has access to anything. ICE is saying San Francisco is doing something. San Francisco is saying ICE is doing something. The DOJ has no idea what's going on at the FBI. It's just a total mess. All of it. in California, of course. So finally, let's take a look at some of these indictments so that we can see exactly what is going on here. There was an original complaint that was filed. This is the original criminal complaint filed against David Depape. The date of the arrest was on October 28th. He was held with no bail. Of course, this involved David Wayne Depape out of the San Francisco division, felony charges, several different U.S. counts. This was submitted on 10/31. This is the criminal complaint out of the federal district court for the Northern District of California. All of this was submitted, and you saw this, came from FBI Special Agent Stephanie Miner out of San Francisco. Probably one of those FBI agents that we walked into David Depape's alleged yard. So that's the cover sheet. This is the criminal complaint, and you're going to see just a couple little differences between these two documents. Both of these documents are, an indictment and a criminal complaint. These are two documents that are intended to bring and initiate criminal charges against a person. They go through different mechanisms, but they essentially get to the same conclusion, which is to determine that there's enough probable cause to move forward with the charges. So the criminal complaint came first. Then they presented all of the evidence to a grand jury, which brought about the full formal indictment. Two charges here: assault on a federal official family member and attempt to kidnap a federal official. And you saw this came from Stephanie Miner. And I wanted to just zoom in on the door portion of this to see if we could see the door portion of this. She says, I'm a special agent of the FBI. I'm currently assigned. I'm authorized to investigate this. We've got applicable criminal statutes. This is from the first filing in October. It says October 28th, there's a male at home. The male is going to wait for Pelosi's wife. The male said his name is David. Okay. At 2:31 a.m., SFSPD officer Colby Wilms responded to the residence, California, and knocked on the door. When the door was opened. Now, you see that? Right there. When the door was opened, Pelosi and Depape were both holding a hammer with one hand. And when we read through this originally, we're saying, hold on a minute. What kind of stupid report is this? When the door was opened? Like, what is this? It's like it's passive language. Was? Who did the acting? Who did what to whom? It's passive writing. The door was opened. It'd be like, well, Pelosi was struck with a hammer. Okay, we need a lot more information than that here. By whose hammer and who did the swinging and where did it happen? All this other stuff. So in the first filing, the first complaint, we don't get any information about the door being opened. They skip over that. They say that Pelosi greeted the officers. Hello, gentlemen, welcome. The officers asked them what was going on. Depape responded. He said everything was good. Officers then asked Pelosi and Depape to drop the hammer. But that's when Depape pulled the hammer from Pelosi's hand, swung the hammer, struck Pelosi in the head. Officers then immediately went inside now. Okay, so now the officers aren't even inside the door. So the door was opened. We don't know by whom. Then the officers went inside after the swinging of the hammer already struck. While officers were restraining Depape, Pelosi appeared to be unconscious on the ground. The rest of the story is history, right? We've read through all of that previously. Okay, so that was the complaint. That's the first filing. Then once all of this evidence, right, that's right at October 28th, boom, it happens. FBI shows up the 29th. We fast forward a day or two. They get a complaint drafted, submitted to the court. But then they have a time to really investigate the case. And so they say, okay, we better present all this material to a grand jury to get this guy formally indicted so we don't have to have any more preliminary hearings to establish probable cause through the direct complaint process. Got it. We go back over to the grand jury proceeding. A lot of time has passed. They've got their cases, their ducks in a row now. And let's see what they filed for us. November 9th, 7 pages, same court, filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, United States of America versus David Depape. An indictment presented and signed to the foreperson of the grand jury, submitted November 9th with no bail, approved by the judge for 2 counts. Attempted kidnapping of a federal officer and assault of a federal official. So same charges in the original complaint. Here's what they say. Speaker Pelosi is or was the former Speaker of the House. She's a member who is entitled to Capitol Hill protection. Married to Paul Pelosi. They live in San Francisco. Now, zooming in on the door, on or about October 28th at 2:23 a.m., San Francisco police received a 911 call from Mr. Pelosi at the Pelosi residence. In the 2.5-minute phone call, Pelosi conveyed to the dispatch officer that there was an unknown man in his residence. Pelosi also conveyed that the man was looking for Pelosi's wife, Mr. Pelosi's wife, a speaker who would not be there for days. Pelosi made clear in the 911 call that he did not know who the man was. On the call and from the background, Depape can be heard giving his name as David and declaring himself a friend. Mr. Pelosi confirmed to the dispatcher he did not know the man. Towards the end of the call, when the dispatcher offered to stay on the phone with him, Mr. Pelosi told the dispatcher that the man wanted him to get the hell off the phone. Moments later, at approximately 2:31 a.m., SFPD officers from San Francisco responded to the Pelosi residence and 2 officers knocked on the front door. The 2 officers who approached the door had their body-worn cameras activated. Great. The 2 officers opened the door to see the foyer. Wait a minute. What? The 2 officers opened the door to see the foyer. Okay, so that's different because in the prior filing, they told us that the door was opened. The door was open. All right, so we get a little bit more information. Okay, good news. The police then opened the door to see the foyer of the Pelosi residence. And Pelosi was wearing a long sleeve shirt. Depape was in shorts, running shoes, and a sweatshirt. And they were jointly gripping a hammer. An officer asked what was going on. Depape says everything's good. Used his other hand to encircle Pelosi's right arm. Immediately, an officer said, "Drop the hammer." Depape responded, nope. Depape then pulled the hammer over his head, thereby also pulling Pelosi closer to him. So he pulls it up. Pelosi's grabbing it, and Pelosi goes, "Whoa!" Swung the hammer abruptly and forcefully at Mr. Pelosi. This event lasted 15 seconds. So here we have some similarities. As the officers rushed through the door, they found Mr. Pelosi and Depape on the floor. Pool of blood surrounded around Pelosi's head. They confirmed that he had a backpack and that the backpack was on the porch by the broken glass. Now, see this is similar now. So back to the original filing, we have a difference about how the door was open. But then they hung outside of the foyer. Officers immediately went inside, right? So that is true. They did wait outside in both stories. But in this second indictment, it's unequivocal. The 2 officers opened the door, right? Now, that is not what NBC News is reporting at all. That is in the indictment. The 2 officers opened the door. Now, the rest of this we have covered and talked about, but in a subsequent search, they found cloth gloves, a journal. They spoke to officers. Mr. Pelosi spoke to officers. He was transported down for treatment. They had an interview with Mr. Depape. They Mirandized him. He said that he broke into the door using a glass hammer. He found Pelosi in bed, told him to wake up, said, "I'm looking for Pelosi. Where is she?" He had zip ties he said he was going to use to restrain him, and he also threatened Pelosi when he was on the phone. He said he did not leave after the 911 call because he was fighting tyranny, and that he used full force on Pelosi. Said that she is the leader of a pack of lies and that there's other targets. And he had an address of another target, somebody named Target 1 as well. Right, so that's the distinction. Of course, not much additional there, all presented to a grand jury. We've covered, it's much of the same facts we've covered previously. And so signed by the foreperson of a grand jury, submitted and accepted by the courts. And of course, he had some additional hearings as a result of that. So very interesting differences there. And let's just listen to this one more time to see and just confirm exactly what happened here, because it sounds like that's not at all what's true.
At his San Francisco home. Now, there continues to be contradicting accounts of a relatively simple question. Who opened the door that night when San Francisco police arrived to the Pelosi house? Now, the Department of Justice says the 2 officers opened the door. That's according to a federal indictment filed earlier this week.
We just read that.
But the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, in another court document that was filed earlier this month, said Mr. Pelosi opened the door with his left hand.
There it is.
So the question is, what really happened? According to a source familiar with the investigation who personally watched the police body camera footage from that night, officers knocked on the door of the Pelosi home, then backed away And the video clearly shows Paul Pelosi open the door with his left hand, just like what was noted in the documents filed by the DA's office.
They got it right. The local cops got it right. The feds got it wrong, or they lied about it. Now, we don't know. But there was another interesting filing that we'll wrap up with that includes a protective order for Depape. And you can see this got filed on November 17th. If we can see it here. Yes, November 16th. 5-page document filed in the Northern District of California. It's a protective order against David Depape, or in the case involving David Depape. They say that David Depape is charged with a number of different crimes, and that as this case progresses, there's going to be materials that pop up in the discovery process. And so recall, discovery in a criminal case, remember that the government has all of the evidence. They've got body cameras, they've got witness interviews. Think of it as like a big file or a big briefcase. They've got everything. And so in the process, when somebody is charged with a crime, we go through what's called discovery or disclosure, where they will send stuff over to us in sort of batches. Well, here's a disclosure batch. Here's another one. And in this case, they're trying to protect this individual from any disclosures, as well as protect government information from disclosures. So here's what the court has ordered. Judge said, it is hereby ordered that Depape's counsel, their investigators, their assistants, their employees, everybody on the defense team, they may review with the defendant, Depape, all of the discovery material produced by the government, but they cannot, shall not give Depape a copy of it, or allow him to make copies of it, or even have unsupervised access to any of the discovery material produced by the government that contains protected information unless it's been redacted entirely from the discovery materials. They don't want Depape or his lawyers or anybody on this team to disclose anything, right? They're going to tighten this puppy up. The government and defense counsel are ordered to work together to ensure these materials are protected. So if anything leaks, there's going to be a big problem. But that the defendant has as much access as they can, consistent with our order. Discovery material that clearly pertains to a specific defendant that does not contain protected information may be provided without the redactions. Now it says defense lawyers may show the witness the protected information in the course of preparing for a defense or for trial, but only if the witness, by reason of their participation, would have seen or had reason to know about it, right? So you can't sort of show all witnesses everything. You can only show certain witnesses relevant information. It's going to be highly protected. It's otherwise relevant. The defense basically has to promise they're going to be adhering to all of that. They say defense counsel may also provide unredacted copies of protected information to experts who have been officially retained. The defense team shall maintain protected information safely, securely, shall not divulge anything. If a party files a pleading that contains protected information, must file it under seal. Any judgment or disposition that has become final that also contains protected information will be also kept under seal. And everybody signed off on this. Okay, so this is submitted by the U.S. prosecutors and the assistant federal public defender. Of course, David Depape is going to be getting a public defender. It doesn't seem like he's going to afford private counsel, but that's the filing. So very limited, right? Very protective envelope has been attached to this entire case because they don't want you to know anything about what really happened here. And of course, our big question is, did the FBI intentionally lie about who opened the door, or what, are they just incompetent? Which one is it? Don't know, but it's certainly one of the two, and we'll have to wait and see. We'll continue to follow the Depape case because there's going to be a lot more fun stuff, I'm sure, on it. In fact, it'll probably be a very quick plea deal. We'll see, but we'll continue to cover it. Thanks for joining us as we do. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video wherever it is you are watching this, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.